Trump says tonight is one of the most important moments in the history of the world as the deadline approaches for Iran to make a deal with the U.S. and open the Strait of Hormuz. Joining us now is Kervin O'Quinn, former lead intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance coordinator for the U.S. Army. Kervin, thank you for joining us today. Trump is saying that a whole civilization could die tonight. I'm just wondering here, why isn't Iran meeting U.S. demands immediately? If I were Iran, I would be terrified right now.
Yeah, well, first of all, I would say it's great to be on, but I'd rather be on under different circumstances. And Don, the last time I think I was speaking to you, we were talking about Trump saying that he had closed down Venezuelan airspace. And we kind of chuckled at the fact that we are seeing these huge diplomatic expressions publicly done on social media, and that we would hope that something worse would not happen on Truth Social or TikTok. And now look what we have here. We have a sitting president of the United States saying it on social media, an entire civilization is going to be wiped out. Now, is what I would like to believe here, and what my assessment here is, that this is Trump-hyperbole. What he is doing here is what he has done for the tariff war, where he's trying to get a response out of the other party. And you bring up such a great question here. Why is Iran not running like, say, Japan did during the tariff wars, where everyone started to capitulate to Trump's tariffs? And I think, and my assessment is, that the problem is no one knows who's running Iran right now. You have a supreme leader that we have not seen publicly since he has been named the new supreme leader. You have a president who's publicly saying one thing and privately doing another thing. So that's the Iranian president there. And now you have an entire civilization who is left in the dark, only gets Iranian state media. So I think right now, some parts of the Iranian regime feel emboldened. They are going to, like I've said with Putin, you just test the bully and you say, hey, are you going to do what you say you were going to do? And we are going to live with that. So what we're seeing right now are two competing adversaries going at each other verbally, and we're going to find out tonight, who outlasts who.
So some are raising concerns of President Trump's threats, such as, bombing Iran's power plants. But President Trump said yesterday, and we've seen social media posts as well, President Trump saying that the Iranian people will be willing to endure such action if it means lasting freedom, right? We're talking about decades into the future. What is your view on this?
Yeah, I think that's the correct assessment from the U.S. Trump's getting that from U.S. intelligence, that there are factions within Iran, a majority of the Iranian people, who actually are waiting for the regime to go away so that they're free. And just like you mentioned there, we're not looking at today or the next week or the next month. We have people who are looking decades down the line about how their life can be better if the regime is moved away. Now, the dichotomy of that is what we are seeing with these human shields. And so you're going to see a lot of posting on social media about how the Iranian people's sentiment towards the regime has changed. And I will argue that that is not true, that the Iranian regime is putting pressure on a certain amount of people to risk their lives. Otherwise, their families will die, to be human shields here around these facilities. And that is to test the Trump administration, first to see if the Trump administration is willing to still strike where there's human shields at. And second, if the U.S. does do that, they know that the international community is going to come out in waves. Look, it's already all over social media. If you are perpetually online, like some of us are, myself included, you may believe that, one, Trump is going to drop a nuclear bomb on Iran, or two, he is going to, fire upon human shields, and that Iran is actually either winning this war or they are the more popular fighter in this conflict.
Okay, you were right to question whether the Iranian regime, is forcing these people to go to these places around power plants where President Trump has threatened to bomb against their will. Can you just give us your comments because it seems strikingly similar, the tactics that the terrorist group Hamas used when Israel was trying to get rid of Hamas, that it was hiding behind civilians.
Right. And so like I always say on my podcast this week, Explained, it all depends on who you believe and who you want to trust as your sources. But yes, Hamas has used human shields. What is Hamas? Hamas is an Iranian proxy. So where did they learn those tactics of utilizing human shields? From the Iranian regime. And so Iran is using that tactic now to, like I said, one, to see if the US or Israel will attack these sites and risk human lives, Iranian lives, and risk a PR disaster. And two, whether neither the US nor Israel will do that, and whether they will capitulate or make it seem like they will capitulate to the Iranian regime. And so then the Iranian regime can boast once again that they have defeated the Israelis, they have defeated the United States, and that the will of the Iranian people have won. And that's what we are taught right now. That's the deadline we are coming to. Trump wants a victory and he wants peace or a ceasefire, and the Iranian regime wants to survive another day and be able to claim victory in this conflict.
Okay, it wants to survive another day, but let's say hypothetically, if President Trump, if Iran doesn't come to the table first, President Trump is going to attack the power plants. If it wants to survive, how can it survive? What is its strategy that all the power plants are destroyed, all the bridges are destroyed? How does that work in its favor?
Well, it doesn't work in the Iranian people's favor. It will work in the Iranian regime's favor because they have two countries that are adversarial to the United States that can prop up the entire country. And that is, from a lesser extent, the Russian Federation, but from a greater extent, the People's Republic of China, the PRC, who are already providing petrochemicals to fuel the missiles that are attacking sites in the region. They are providing Iran with, sanctioned finances to prop up the regime. China wants to see this conflict continue because that puts less resources in the Indo-Pacific, and that gives China much easier access to Taiwan, which is exactly where they want to be sitting right now.
But wouldn't you say it's a better strategy to agree to the terms to the U.S. right now so it can avoid the possible consequences, and then it could talk about its plans after it gets it overcomes this hurdle? Just agree to the U.S.'s demands and talk about what you're going to do later.
Yeah, I think that I would love to see that. Make no mistake, I don't understand what's going on through the minds of the Iranian regime. They are backed in a corner right now. I would assess that they believe that what could be seen as a defeat, which it would be if they capitulate now to Trump's demands, and they feel emboldened by the international media's portrayal of Trump as a madman. And he's not helping himself with these social media posts. But what I would say is the Iranian regime is backed in a corner. If they lose, if they capitulate, there is a chance the people of Iran rise up and go after the regime. And that, I think, is much more dangerous than any U.S. strikes within the borders of Iran. The people uprising and starting a revolution in Iran, which, by the way, they should do. This is my opinion. They should rise up against the regime. That is a lot more dangerous to the regime than Israel and the U.S. can do to them, save a nuclear weapon.
Right, that is a good point. I also wanted to talk to you about the Strait of Hormuz. So Iran's paramilitary Revolutionary Guard warned today that it would deprive the U.S. and its allies of the region's oil and gas for years if Trump carries out this attack. So in your assessment, does Iran have the ability to do this, especially, for years to come into the future?
Yeah, Don, that's a great point that you made, because you asked the question that I was going to answer, that in the short term, yes, they do have that. But in phrasing the question the way that you did, the answer is no. Long term, do they have the ability to do that? With the amount of sanctions that are on Iran, the dwindling missile stockpiles that they have, although they do have some missile stockpiles left. Long term, they have no way that they can do that without the help of other allies within the region. And look, they don't have many allies in the region. Saudi Arabia is not an ally; they are an adversary. Bahrain, the UAE. Look, Pakistan, another nuclear power, is siding with the U.S., Saudi Arabia, and Israel in this, and says that if any attacks on Saudi Arabia happen, Pakistan will get in this fight. So Iran's in a tough position right now, and what they're doing is trying to seem like they are that existential threat that Israel thinks that they are, because if they can pose themselves as a threat, then those in the region are going to be less likely to begin attacks within their borders.
Okay, just one final question here. How do you see this war coming to an end? I mean, it's easy to imagine if Iran agrees to the deal in the next 6 hours, it's easy to see how the war could come to an end. But if it doesn't agree, what conditions do you see for this war coming to a conclusion?
That's a tough one there. What the hope is that both sides can come to an agreement in good faith, that each side can say, look, we came out victorious. We've got Vice President Vance, who is stating that all military, there was a huge military success and all military targets have been accomplished. And you have Iran that says that they are still the power in the Middle East, and they have all of these missiles. So if they could find a way that both look like they have come out victorious of this, that would be great. If that does not happen, and a huge another swath of air strikes happen in Iran, I don't know where this ends. I don't believe it ends with boots on the ground within Iran. It might end up with boots on the ground on Karg Island to secure the oil. It might end with more excessive strikes, and then Saudi Arabia and Pakistan getting in and suppressing Iran and forcing them to make a capitulation and a ceasefire deal within the next week or two. But the next 12 to 24 hours are going to really tell us a lot.
Yeah. First, we have to wait 6 hours, and then President Trump said this war could come to an end 2 to 3 weeks. So either way, we won't have to wait too long, I suppose, to see what happens. But really enjoyed speaking with you today, Kervin. Thank you.
Don, I love the conversation as always. And as I always say, stay safe out there.
Thanks. Vice President J.D. Vance in Europe today laying out two paths for Iran: normalize or face deepening economic pain as President Trump sets a hard deadline for action. A former Muslim turned Christian pastor says Iranians are turning to